Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your place to, well, cut through the noise and get right to the core insights. Today, we're tackling something pretty universal. How do we handle life when it inevitably gets challenging? We all hit those rough patches, don't we? So the question is, how do you build real resilience, not just grit your teeth, when everything feels uncertain? Our source material for this deep dive is a fascinating conversation called How to Build an Unshakable Faith in Hard Times. We're going to pull out the key wisdom, the practical steps it offers for building, well, a faith that really holds up.
Exactly. And that's our mission for you today. We want to distill the absolute core messages and the actionable stuff from this material. It's not just about understanding what resilient faith looks like from this perspective, but also why these specific principles are seen as so essential. And maybe most importantly, how you might actually apply them when, life throws those storms your way. You want to get informed, get the essence quickly, and we promise a clear and hopefully engaging exploration to deliver just that.
Okay, let's dig into this then. The material we're examining, it starts off very honestly, really acknowledges that, yeah, life does get tough. It talks about those things we all know, those real gut-wrenching disappointments, the deep pain of loss, maybe the drain of sickness, or that constant worry about finances. These aren't just abstract concepts, right? They're the real moments that can make anyone feel like their faith is just, well, hanging on by a thread.
Right. And what's really insightful here, I think, is how the discussion shifts from just acknowledging the difficulty to reframing faith itself. It suggests that maybe faith isn't really proven when everything's going smoothly. It's truly revealed when, as the source puts it, everything feels like it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Brings up that powerful idea from James 1.3, reminding us that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Which implies these tough times aren't just things to survive, but actual opportunities for deep internal strengthening.
And wow, to really illustrate that, the material uses the story of Job. I mean, here's someone who lost literally everything. Children, wealth, health, unimaginable suffering. And yet, facing all that, he says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's Job 13.15. What does a story like that really tell us about what this kind of unshakable faith looks like in action?
It shows a faith that makes a choice to trust despite the circumstances, even when they're overwhelming. It's not about pretending things aren't bad, not a blind optimism, but a deep conviction that holds on even when logically hope seems gone. And the source points out a really crucial first step here, one that maybe gets skipped sometimes, actually naming the storm you're in. So whether it's that specific money worry or a tough family situation, or maybe just feeling deeply alone, identifying it is key. The idea seems to be you can't really address something within a faith framework if you don't first acknowledge it, right? You bring it into the light.
Yeah. That's a really practical point. Not ignoring it, but facing it, just with a different perspective. Okay, so you've named the storm. What next? What does this discussion say are the practical things you can actually do to build that resilience? Because it doesn't just leave us there contemplating the struggle. It offers concrete steps.
Exactly. It moves right into the actionable stuff. And the first big one it emphasizes is to actively remember divine character. It points to something interesting, that in hard times, our own minds can kind of, lie to us. They might whisper doubts, suggest we've been abandoned, that kind of thing. But this wisdom pushes back. It says, no, remember the consistent, unchanging nature of the divine. It quotes Hebrews 13.5 directly. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And that powerful promise from Isaiah 41.10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you.
That's really potent because it's framed not just as a comforting thought, but as an active strategy against fear. So the material suggests that really meditating on these qualities, like intentionally focusing on who this divine power is said to be, that's how you shrink the fear. Shifting focus from the big, scary situation to this unchanging foundation. For someone listening now, maybe thinking, okay, but how do I do that? What's the practical advice here?
Yeah, give a very concrete suggestion. Make a point to reflect on past times where you've personally seen or felt divine faithfulness. Think back. Was there a time you felt guided? Or a situation that just worked out in a way that felt, providential? The argument is recalling those moments, those past experiences have helped build your confidence, builds trust for the challenges that are inevitably coming down the line. It's like exercising a muscle, building that strength.
Right. That makes sense. Building on past experiences. Okay, so remembering character is step one. What's the second key step this material outlines?
The second step is to stay rooted in prayer. The material really underscores how vital prayer is, especially when you're feeling anxious or, totally overwhelmed. It points directly to Philippians 4.6, which is such a key verse for worry. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. But what's really insightful, I think, is the clarification that prayer doesn't always immediately change the situation outside. The profound effect that highlights is that prayer changes us.
Changes us. That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because, yeah, a lot of us might pray hoping for that instant external fix. But this suggests something deeper, more internal. When it says prayer changes us, what does that, look like? How does it describe that internal shift?
It uses this great phrase, prayer is like oxygen for your spirit. It suggests it's this life-giving force that strengthens you from the inside. It builds up your inner resolve, shifts your perspective, even if the external storm is still raging. It's a kind of spiritual recalibration. And it offers a very specific, actionable challenge. Just dedicate 5 minutes to gratitude prayer. Importantly, before you even start asking for things, the idea is that this intentional act of giving thanks, shifting your focus to gratitude first, is a powerful and often immediate way to unlock a sense of inner peace.
5 minutes of gratitude. That feels very doable, a good starting point. Okay, so remember divine character, stay rooted in prayer. What's the third piece this deep dive highlights for building that unshakable faith?
Then we get to the third essential element. Surround yourself with faith-filled community. This part really hammers home that you're not meant to face these battles in isolation. It uses that incredibly vivid picture from Mark chapter 2, the friends who literally broke through a roof to lower their paralyzed friend down to get help. That story is such a powerful illustration of how sometimes the faith of others can quite literally carry you, act as your support when your own faith feels weak or shaky.
Yeah, that image really sticks with you. That shared load, the collective strength, that echoes that verse in Ecclesiastes too, doesn't it? Ecclesiastes 4.9:10. Two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. It's just a reminder that we're kind of built for connection, especially when we're struggling. For someone listening who might feel isolated right now, what practical suggestions does the material give for actually finding this community?
It offers some really accessible entry points. Things like joining a Bible study group, or maybe reaching out to just one trusted friend who shares similar values. Or even, it suggests finding encouragement in shared discussions, maybe like this deep dive we're having right now. The main point is to be proactive, to actively seek out those connections that can lift your spirit and give you that crucial communal support.
Okay, so we've talked about acknowledging the struggle, these 3 big practical steps, but how does this all actually work out in, real life? The material includes some really compelling personal stories, testimonies that show these principles in action. Can you share some of those?
Absolutely, they really bring it to life. One story is about someone who suddenly lost their job. You can just imagine the fear, the uncertainty hitting them. Understandably, their faith felt really shaken. But in that difficult season, they found this anchor in Matthew 6.26, the verse that says, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" And the story ends with them not just finding a new job eventually, but coming out of it with a faith that was much stronger, much deeper than before.
Wow, that's quite a transformation. And it connects really well with another story shared, doesn't it? About someone facing a serious health crisis, just dealing with physical struggle, no clear answers from doctors. And this person apparently clung to Psalm 46.1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
What's so striking is that right in the middle of that trial, they didn't just, get through it. They described experiencing this unexpected, profound sense of divine presence, finding that refuge and strength in the trouble, not just after it. Exactly.
Yeah.
These stories provide such a vital perspective.
Yeah.
And it's all beautifully tied together with Romans 8.28, which is such a foundational verse for many. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. The really profound takeaway here from this viewpoint is the idea that pain has purpose. That these difficult seasons, the things that feel so destructive at the time, they aren't just meaningless suffering. They can actually become powerful testimonies, catalysts for real growth.
That's a challenging idea, though, isn't it? Because our instinct is usually to run from pain, but this reframes it. These experiences can actually build us, shape us in ways that easy times just can't. So as we sort of start to wrap this up, what's the final message from this deep dive about the nature of this unshakable faith? What makes it endure?
Yeah, the discussion really concludes with some encouraging thoughts. It repeats this core idea. Your faith doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be, as it says, planted in the right person. It's more about the object of your trust, the foundation, rather than you achieving some flawless level of belief.
That brings up an important question, maybe for someone listening who is wrestling with doubt right now. How does this material define unshakable faith? Does it mean you never have questions, never feel uncertain?
Not at all. It makes that clear. It's not about never doubting. It's defined more as choosing to keep standing even when you're trembling. Mm-mm. So faith is framed as an act of will, you know, a persistent choice to trust beyond what you can immediately see or feel. It perfectly lines up with 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we live by faith, not by sight. It's that active decision to hold on even when things aren't clear.
And it leaves us with one more really practical challenge, doesn't it? Memorize just one scripture this week, one verse that speaks about strength or comfort. The idea is to repeat it daily. Let the word become your weapon, a tool against the anxieties and doubts that creep in. Turn it into an active part of your resilience.
Exactly. And ultimately, this whole conversation loops back to that foundational image from Matthew chapter 7, where it describes someone who hears these words and puts them into practice. They're like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Then the storms came, the rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. The material essentially concludes by saying that rock is the spiritual foundation. Build on that, and no storm can ultimately overcome you. It's about choosing that solid ground deliberately.
And there we have it, our deep dive into how to build an unshakable faith in hard times. We've looked at the reality of adversity, uncovered those practical steps, remembering divine character, prayer, community, seen how real stories show these truths, and how it's all about building on that solid foundation.
So as you think about everything we've unpacked from the source material, here's a final thought to maybe mull over. How can you personally identify and actively reinforce the rock or the anchor in your own life? What's maybe one single principle from our discussion today that you could put into practice this week, either to prepare for future storms or perhaps to help navigate one you're already in?
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into some really insightful material today. We hope you continue your own journey of informed discovery, building that unshakable foundation, one intentional step at a time.